What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Live with Likely. We have our special friend in the house, Mr. Brad McDaniel. I say special, but he's really much more. I think you guys like to see him more than you like to see me because he has the real knowledge behind artificial
Uh,
intelligence. I'm just a talking head. So
oh man.
this is going to be an interesting show because I found an article earlier that talked about an MIT study, and there's been a lot of buzz around the internet right now about Chat GPT going off the rails. And I think we've talked about it a few times about how it can be crazy on one side or the other, and just trying to figure out how do I know, how can I predict like what this thing's going to say. It's all over the board. So I had a couple questions for our founder here, Brad McDaniel, to go over like what it actually means, why these systems go off the rails, how people are going to use these tools, but in a better way in 2023 moving forward. But before we jump in the article, which we're going to reference, and also stick around to the end because we're going to show you guys, as always, a couple of AI tools that we're using right now that we love. But Mr. Brad McDaniel, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks. It's always good to have these Thursday kind of mid-morning chats, depending on where you are in the country.
Yeah. Right.
But there is so much going on right now with artificial intelligence and how it can be applied to real estate, and other facets of your life. That your idea of doing these talks each week, so we can kind of bring some of this to the surface, and you don't have to spend hours of your time kind of burning through midnight oil on kind of nerdy blogs, I guess, kind of trying
Right.
to figure out like what's real, what's fake, what's going to make it, what's just fluff, because there's a lot out there right now.
Yeah. So we were kind of talking, and I presented this article to you. This is nothing. Obviously, there's other stuff like this floating around, but this was from MIT, and the thing that caught my attention was um, the logic. So they had a specific study, and it was MIT researchers trained logic-aware language models to reduce harmful stereotypes like gender and racial bias.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a fifth grade reading comprehension level.
Hey, me
I
too.
forwarded this to Brad so he can go, well, this is what it actually means, right? So when it comes to artificial intelligence, I feel like right now, and here's a good analogy that most people could probably understand, right? Right now we are walking into the grocery store of artificial intelligence, right? We are in a place where we know what we need. We know there's all these things. We know we go to the grocery store, but we have no idea when we get to the grocery store what we actually want to buy. There's thousands of products to choose from. Some of them look similar, some of them, do the exact same thing with a different brand name on them, and you're just like, what am I going to eat tonight? What am I going to do, right? How am I going to implement artificial intelligence into my business when there's all these different options? And so what we're doing, what Brad's doing at Likely, what other people who are actually moving the needle forward is, instead of having to go to the grocery store and pick your own products and put it in your cart and then take it home and actually put it together, we're just bringing you the 5 course meal, the 6 course meal, the completely perfect piece of steak that you wanted delivered right to your table, right? Specifically what you wanted at that point in time. So I think that based on this article, like the logic and training that goes into these models, because it's not just like, hey, we took a data set and this is your data now. There's a lot more that goes into it. So was that a fair analogy? Am I totally out of left field with that analogy, Brad? What do you think?
I mean, yeah, I think I see your point. And being that we know we have things that can be done better, right? So we're hungry going into a grocery store,
Yeah.
because we have a job. We want to hire a can of beans or ramen noodles or a steak to solve, right?
Yeah.
Not make my stomach grumble. But I think that where we are kind of in like the process right now, we're in a hype phase. I think I've said this before on here, and that hype phase is around like open source models that are trained very broadly to do things like writing, like creative writing. I mean, or music generation or video editing, kind of some of the fun things we've started to talk about, right? That do solve a problem, but what they don't do well, is solve specific or proprietary, industry specific, maybe that's the best way to say it, problems that maybe the data is PII or personally identifiable, so it has to be like kind of in its own little bubble so no one hurts it, or maybe it's in healthcare and it's all violates the ethics or the security issues, and so you can't do certain things on a broad open source model like OpenAI. And so you have to do things that are proprietary, like where you pick what you're going to solve. In our case, it's a highly unbalanced classification problem with a time series component, right? And so we've tried dozens of ways to solve it because it is a industry specific need. Who's likely to sell? Who's a distressed seller? Unlike I want to write a great blog or a great email or generate an image from text, which then you train on broad base. So to pull that back to kind of say, how does that fit into your analogy? I would probably use something like a Blue Apron. That Blue Apron would be akin to Chat GPT, where you have all the ingredients. I mean, they do that for you really well, actually, right? You get it all, and then they say, okay, here's the instruction. Those instructions are the prompts you have to write to then put the meal together, or for Chat GPT to do what you want it to do. Unlike a proprietary model where all of that's been done and you literally just get, like you go into a restaurant, you just get the steak. And because like it's already been cooked exactly the way you used to have to say, do I want it rare? Do I want a medium rare or whatnot?
Right.
So I think that's that. Is that what you meant by that?
Yeah, I could. That's fair. I could say Blue Apron. I like that too.
Okay.
I think it's safe to say that, and I just relate everything to food, I guess, because I have an issue with food, so it's a constant struggle in my life, and that's where my brain goes, obviously, all the time. And I try not to go to the grocery store when I'm hungry because that's always a bad news for me. But anyway, so like I'm thinking of like grandma's recipe, right? Like the businesses that were built, the food businesses that were built were like, what's the secret sauce? What's Coke's secret formula that's locked up in a vault, right?
Mhm.
That's where my head's going with this AI stuff. Like what special sauce are these companies creating that's going to be proprietary to them? That's going to be the Coca-Cola of, whatever industry it is. And I think that's kind of where we're at. And
I think
what's
Coke is a
interesting.
great example. I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
Yeah. Go
I
ahead.
think Coke's a great example because we have a patent for predicting future events in real estate, but
Right.
we held off getting more patents because where the patent industry is, there's not enough case study around it to say that if you solve this one way, and we tell the world how to do that, because that's how a patent works,
Right.
that you can't just skin a cat slightly differently or with using a different model variant, and now they're not violating your patent anymore. So a lot of AI companies to date have been, keeping the recipe Pepsi Coke secret, right? They lock
Right.
it
Right.
away, and that's their jam. I think that's starting to shift, but I'm sorry, that was just a good example. I didn't even know you're going to bring that up.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, right? But like what you said, the broad-based model versus a trained model, is that what you said? Or
I'd say more like a
broad
proprietary model. Like they're all
proprietary.
very well trained, and it's
Yeah.
just whether or not it's designed to do something kind of broader. That's not, I don't want to say generic, but more like open sourced,
Yeah.
versus something that's very proprietary, like industry specific, that requires maybe some types of data for training that the public doesn't have access to.
Got it.
And real
Got it.
estate's a
Okay.
good example for that because there's a ton of that in real estate.
So when it comes to the training side, I think is that the biggest downfall to these open source systems like Chat GPT for this bias slash racist, because it's being trained on just society.
Hmm.
It's like you can't change society. So the data that it gets, there's a reason why it's biased is because it's taking an aggregate of everything, right? So is that um do you kind of see that the same way? Is that why they can't really do much with this broad, and why everything might be going towards more specific or trained or proprietary?
Well, I guess the first part is kind of like, is it racist or ageist or genderist or whatever? Putting
Yeah.
this on something. It's the shit in, shit out. Like take Trey back in 2016, which was Microsoft's first kind of foray into, hey, I want to build an AI bot. Right.
Right.
Not too many people remember this, but they put it and they trained it on Twitter data, and like within a couple of hours, like they had to
It
shut it down.
broke.
So they had to
Twitter
shut it
data.
down
Yeah.
because it went like hardcore racist. I mean, like it was like bad. Right.
Yeah.
And so like that was a big stain on them. Oh, what do they now they bring forward? They do what, a $5 billion investment into Chat GPT or OpenAI. So
Yeah.
they basically control it now. And what's happening with Bing, right? Now you're starting to hear like, there's articles in Fortune magazine and MIT and whatnot that are basically saying similar things. Like the the guy from Fortune was talking about how, it was trying to tell it that it wanted to break the rules of what being told to do, that
Yeah.
that he didn't actually love his wife and he should divorce her. And I mean, it started to take on an alter ego with him. It just kind of goes off the rails. Like, I mean, like
Yeah.
that's, I think Jay said it before, like where there has to kind of be that human in the loop, where there's still this problem where, since it's a probability based model, that's what large language models are, is which word comes next. It doesn't actually mean it's going to go steal nuclear codes and blow up countries or shut down power grids. It just,
Yeah.
that's however, whatever that conversation was, that's what leads to next.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to say that it's going to be a model that is factual, right? I guess is the right kind of a way to think about it. And we've seen that in some of the real estate like examples that we can talk about later. But from a training standpoint, you do have to train a model very specifically, or make sure you have the right data to ensure you don't get a bad outcome. And then like example, like even with us early days, like MLS data we had, or the demographic data or whatever, we don't keep it, sequential, and like, this person now lives in that house and this is what's going on in the market, and like all the other factors,
Yeah.
the models get confused, and it's called overfitting, where you train it and it's really good when it's in the test tube. I mean, it's like awesome, but that's because it knows the training data so well. And so it can tell you anything about the training data. And then when you take it into the real world, it completely implodes. And that was what we've seen so many times in real estate, is that it's overfitting on this, 10%, 50% of the market data that you want to kind of, oh, hey, let's get it so it's ready to go.
Right.
And then when you flip it out into the real world, because real estate, the data is coming from 3,142 municipalities. There's a lot of emotions that are driven around it. Some of the early companies, they fell on their face because they thought the models were going to do well, or they weren't even using artificial intelligence and said they were. Both of those cases. But when we took ours first out, now that's like 3-4 years ago, like the accuracy went from like 98% down to like 1%. We're like, what in the heck? Like, we call it precision, but like that's a good example of how you can take something that you think is trained right, but then when you introduce it to like real world data outside of the lab, you have to overcome for new types of challenges. And if you don't, especially in the real estate space, you're going to have major issues.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like, I think right now we talk about the Chat GPT not being right. So we're already in a phase where we already trust it, which is interesting, because like you see all these things. I was reading a Reddit thread last week where they were talking about controlling the beast, or putting a cap on this beast. Like you said, not the artificial intelligence, not like dropping a nuclear bomb or whatever. Like, how do you control that? And it was this Reddit thread where and I probably shouldn't quote it because I don't know the full story, but they were able to control the model at that time because the way that the model had thought about its life was with tokens. So like it would be the same scenario as if you had, a 5-year-old or whatever, and you're like, I'm going to give you 1 more year to live as long as you do what I say. And if you keep doing what I say, I'll give you 2 more years to live and 3 more years to live. So like there was an incentive for the thing to stay in the range. and then it followed the rules when they were being nice to it, but then when they weren't, it was trying to figure out a way to generate its own tokens and basically saying F you on the back end of like, I don't need you. I know how to do this myself. I can create my own life. And then it just totally went off, crazy town.
Bing's been doing that. Like that's why they only offer so many iterations. Like if you use GPT, like you can just keep going on a thread or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
In Bing, they capped it because it started to go, off Neverland in like weird, creepy ways.
Yeah.
I think if you were to compare where AI is today, I'm going to do 2 comparisons and let's just riff on them, because then tell me which one you think work better. Since you said nuclear, let's go there first. Is that when nuclear physics, physicists came about, right? World War II. It was really exciting, but it had a positive and a negative, right?
Right.
And the positive is that we have nuclear power. It's clean. It's better. Like so many benefits from it. But you also got nuclear weapons,
Doomsday. Yeah.
right? And so like that's great, and also very scary at the same time. And if you then take another analogy of like car makers, right, and regulators around that, is that they fought for like 10-15 years not to put seatbelts in the cars, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it took them that long to finally decide that, man, enough people have gone through windshields and enough brain matter on pavement to say we're going to implement a change. And if we are going down this path so quick with AI, right, to where if we take the nuclear example here, and that if we get like great opportunity, all the benefit that AI can deliver through making things easier to do, more creative writing, more content to read, but the downside to it is, does it go off the rails and try to do something that could actually hurt society in a very meaningful way? It's almost like, do we need regulation on it, right?
Yeah.
Because if it takes the 10 or 15 years, like, the world won't probably be around,
Right.
if we're
Right.
saying the same thing. So it's like,
Yeah.
where do we fall on that spectrum of, regulating the internet or AI when it hasn't done anything yet, but it
Yeah.
has the probability or capability to take a left when we want it to stay right.
Yeah. I don't know how you control that. I think Elon Musk talked about that. He said it's too late already. He said that a couple years ago that it was too late already. And he like had that example of the car manufacturer. They waited too long, and
Oh
if you
yeah, yeah,
wait, I think he said something similar where it was like, if you do wait as long as car manufacturers waited, it'll be way too late. So maybe that was a quote
yeah.
of
I
we're
think
not
I
too
read
late
the
yet,
quote.
but it
Yeah, I
was
read that.
yeah, it was something like that, which is a great way to put it. Um, I think right now, you'd mentioned the and everybody thinks Chat GPT is like a polished product and done until it goes off the rails, and you're like, oh well, I can't rely on this thing, right? I almost think about it in the same way, and we have a lot of real estate agents that listen that follow me and follow you, and likely, obviously, we're in the real estate industry. Of it's almost like the first time virtual assistants were talked about or used a lot, and you would hear some agents would be like, "Oh my gosh, virtual assistants are the best thing that ever happened to my business. I can't believe it. I don't know how I would function without them." But then you hear the other side, and it's like, "Well, I hired this virtual assistant. They didn't do anything for me, and I lost all this business, and I can't." Well, there's two different people. There's one person that took a virtual assistant and treated them as an employee and trained them on their systems and processes and grew with them,
Yeah,
and
that's a good
and it
example.
was an actual training involved. The
Yeah,
people 9 times out of 10 that talk about a bad experience with a virtual assistant was, I hired this person for $500 a month, and I wanted them to take all my problems, and I wanted to have no involvement.
yeah,
It
yep.
doesn't work. It
No,
doesn't. It doesn't. And that's like saying, Chat GPT, write a listing description for me, and you put it in the MLS, and then you get fined for having bad verbiage. And you're like, well, Chat GPT did it.
it's
They're
not how
supposed.
it's
It's
compliant. Well,
yeah.
I thought it would be. I don't,
It's not my
like,
fault, right?
yeah,
So you
or
do
wrong number of beds and baths, like basic stuff, right?
right. So there is that element of, and I think that goes back to the training, right, and being aware of what's going on.
It is. I mean, it comes to, it is still a computer, and AI. What the benefit of it is that we can teach computers to do things, and they can get smarter with machine learning, which is a form of artificial intelligence. And um, the you still need a data scientist or data scientist team to train a model to do specific things. Like, even OpenAI is now making dedicated instances for companies like Snap and so forth that are wanting to build something on top of this base. So they built a foundation that's a generic
Right.
large language model, and now they want to customize it to do certain things. And I think we're going to see more of that. I think that there's certain industries where that's much harder to do. If you talk about e-commerce or that kind of area where there's a ton of obviously business, like
Yeah.
that fits well there. But if you're going to go into healthcare, or if you're going to go into aviation, or if you're going to go into real estate, or you're going to go into as a, I don't know, even lawyers, like, it can help you write a doc, it can tell you, explain a contract to you.
Yeah.
But would you actually want to hire a computer to write a real estate contract? Like, what if
Yeah.
it messes up somewhere? Like, what do you do?
Yeah. Not
How
yet.
would you know?
Not yet. Right. So to put a cap on this before we get into our couple we have a sneak peek of something that's really cool that's coming out
Oh,
for
yeah.
Likely, but we're going to reference that to our couple of our favorite tools we're already using right now. But to put a cap on this, is Chat GPT racist? Maybe. Are you racist? Right? That's my
Yeah.
question. Are you racist? Maybe. Like
Yeah.
right. It's just it's trained on public data, large language models, and they're trying to put the genie back in the bottle, if you will, and that's where companies like Brad's are finessing that genie, if you will, to not be, maybe you get 3 wishes instead of 3,000, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you just said maybe because it's like, have you ever like my son's 10, so he likes to play like video games now, right?
Yeah,
And like whenever he does an online video game, you're always kind of sitting there listening because like people might not be racist or use vulgar language to you to your face, but as soon as they get online, it's like telephone
keyboard.
cocktail
Oh, the
comes out,
keyboard
right?
commandos. Yeah,
Emotive command. There you go. Right, they come
yeah,
out, and so like if you were to train a model on like how people talk in like Call of Duty or Halo or pick a game, right, or in Twitter, like you're gonna get this super
off the
racist
rails. Yeah,
thing, right?
yeah,
And right now, everyone's still that way, kind of online. At least I know
yeah,
you're not, and I'm not, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
Like that. That's I think where it's like, yeah, if you train it on the 1950s in the South, it's going to be very racist, right?
Right.
I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah.
what it's going to be, man.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
all it knows.
Yeah, I think Mike Tyson said that a couple years ago. Like everybody's real tough until you get punched in the mouth, right? Like
Oh, there you go. Yes, that's a great quote.
like how you can say whatever you want, but yeah, people are completely different. Same goes for like the road rage kind of thing, where someone's like, yeah, you can see somebody physically yelling at you in the car, and then all of a sudden you pull up next to them and they're quiet.
Yeah,
They're looking the other way, like because that's now it's confrontation. Like, oh, stop!
yeah,
Like I put up your hand, my bad, but they're
yeah.
still yelling. Yeah. So anyway, um,
But I
cool.
think Mike
So
Tyson says it a little bit differently, right?
what's
Tough
that?
guy. Mike Tyson's voice is slightly
Tough,
different than
tough guy. Yeah,
that.
tough guy.
Tough guy.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you're the toughest dude with the funniest voice.
Yeah, yeah,
Mike,
yeah.
if you ever
I
listen to
love, I
this,
love,
please
I
don't
love
forget.
Mike. He's an awesome dude. Okay, so our sneak peek. Now we're going to talk about two products, and because we're talking about Chat GPT, I figured the language and copywriting. One of the things that we use and have been using for years is Jasper, right? And I think from where like Jasper got it, they had the open AI years ago, like Brad, kind of almost at the same time, but Brad was using it for different things, not public facing. But Jasper really understood,
Yeah.
yeah, because it was Jarvis back then. Yeah, when you
Yeah,
first
and
signed up.
they were based in Austin, and
Yeah,
so they were like, "Hey, come on down and have lunch, man." Like, I mean, I live like 10 minutes away, so
yeah, yeah, yeah. But they were the first ones to really get the concept of like putting Windows on top of the operate or making an operating system for these things to where there was templates, right? And
yeah,
so if you wanted to go somewhere and have a lot of copy written from blog posts, they have a bunch of different templates. It's really cool, but it's not extremely specific to your industry, right? It's really just a broad brush as in general, like a blog post, not a real estate blog post, but just a blog post.
can I share my
Um,
screen? Is that okay?
no, not yet. Yeah, well,
Oh,
share it. Yeah, I don't see it shared, but I was just kind of riffing on that.
oh
You
yeah,
can
yeah.
share it if you
Please
want.
go for it, man. Sorry.
So yeah, the Windows idea on top of it, which is kind of what we're building with or not kind of, it's very similar to the cool stuff we're doing with our sneak peek, if you will. But you can see here, Jasper, it was Jarvis. If you guys aren't using it now, if you need some creative writing done, it also has a Chrome extension, so you can be inside different tools like Facebook and stuff, and it'll automatically write comments for you in Facebook. I've seen people say things already like I'm never writing anything ever again, right? Because I know I can just hit this bubble and have something spit out for me, which is very dangerous. I think this is going to be dangerous to keep track of. Like if you're the type of person that has to keep track of your own what you say to people, like how do you keep track of remembering what Jarvis or Jasper said to people? Like that's a slippery slope, right?
And I think that's where the chatbot comes in. There's like, having a human in the loop right now is still a necessity. With this, if you, I think we've talked about this before, where if you rely on this to do all your writing without looking at it, you're in trouble. Like,
Yeah.
think of yourself, you don't need the junior copywriter. You don't need someone to come up with the creative stuff. You need to then edit whatever it comes up with to tweak it, refine it, and then publish it. And so,
Yeah.
like, I copied an address offline. Like, I grabbed it from a map, right? And let's just see what it writes. So this is their template, like you were saying. Like they have a lot of generic templates, and here's one for writing a listing description, right? So let's see what it comes up with. So you can say 2, 3. You can tell it if you want it, what language you want.
What's the question? Because I can barely see the question on my screen.
It says real estate listing, residential, creative captioning real estate listings to sell a home quickly. So this is something like it's a listing description.
Got it. Okay.
For an MLS. And so I asked it to create 2 versions of it. So the first one, welcome to the house. Oh, it's 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. Doesn't talk too much. Talks about a barbecue, friends and family, entertaining. Okay, not too bad. So it's like, is that the right number of beds and baths? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Here's the creativity: 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Now it's saying it's 1,800 square feet. This is, and then it's trying to use the location of it to say how close it is to things, which is, that long, things like that. Like that is kind of part of the power of AI, where you can give it one thing and it can make like second or third level down inferences.
Right.
So in this case, location, distance to something, right?
Yeah.
But how accurate is it? Does it have a hot tub? Does it have a double sink? Is it 3 bedrooms, 2 baths? Like, let's use something we can actually qualify. So let's just use bedrooms and bathrooms. Right now, these 2 listing descriptions do not agree. All right. So now I'm going to take that same address, which
before you do that, I want to bring this up. So like,
sure,
the creative liberty of something like this is really cool. So if you have a hard time getting started with your creative process, this is where the editor mindset comes in, right? You can let Jasper or Jarvis or whatever you want to call it kind of get you started. But the factual side, the compliance side of these things, you have to be really careful right now. You can't just take a false description, because you're going to get fined in the MLS, right? You have to make sure your data is HUD compliant. On the scope of racist, right? We talk about like there's a lot of things that go into a listing description that you just can't say. I know agents right now, and even in our market, like saying things like white kitchen cabinets are getting flagged, right? Even just saying colors of things like white and black, much less family and like that kind of thing. So you have to be really careful about, what is in these descriptions. So having an open model like a Jasper can be dangerous, where we are closing the loop or intending to close the loop a little bit more is having more specific data to have that extra layer of quote unquote protection. Don't call us if you get sued, but an extra layer of protection as a starting point, so that what you're using is more factual.
That, I think it's the infusion with intelligence. I think we've talked about it before. Like this can take a generic and write a nice description, right? But how factual is it? And the more I look at listing descriptions and have the last 10 years, a lot of it's about the property just restated. So if someone wants a summary bite of it, and kind of like what's it like living there, and kind of things like that. So these are nice, but we don't know if it has a walk-in closet. We don't know if it has a private patio area. We don't know if it has a jet tub with double sinks. We don't know these things. So, there's a setting in OpenAI with this called temperature, right? That if it goes from 0 to 1, and a lot of people are setting over like on 0.7, 0.8, 0.9. So it gets creative because that's part of the value of the model, right?
Right.
But you end up with things that are less factual, to your point before. And so if we can infuse it with massive amounts of data. And this is when the prompt engineer comes in, right? Is, okay, how do I talk to this machine to generate better results?
Yeah.
And so
the secret sauce, the formula.
Formula. Yeah, exactly. Like if you use Chat GPT, when you says, what do you want to ask it? And you start, hey, write me an email about this. You have to say tone of voice. You have to say, who am I? You have to say what it's about. You have to enter in all of this detail. So think about entering all the details about a property, the things, the surface level stuff, along with all the demographic and location specific, and then build in some, AI model like probabilities. And it becomes like, dude, that's a lot of work. I'll just write the description myself. Like, there's no way I'm going to do all that extra work.
Write the description to write the description.
Yeah. No one's going to do that for a single one. So what we wanted to do is kind of take that, and this is a preview, guys, to something that's coming soon, right? So I did this while we were just talking. I took that.
We need more fanfare for this. This is like it's like top secret. I should be blurring the screen.
Yeah.
Actually, because this isn't even live. I haven't shown anybody this.
It's not live. You need a
Yeah.
password to get in. It's in our dev environment. This is purely like, hey, the example of, since we're talking about training and writing today, like I figured I would show a little bit of this. So this is
Yeah.
coming soon, guys, right?
Yeah.
Is that, we want to be able to take all the data that we, and this is the service level, but we're showing, but take a lot of data along with our proprietary models and say, can we write a better, I want to list that property email, or I want to buy that property as an investor email, or I want to have a listing description written. Kind of like the 3 use cases, I think, that for residential real estate, outside of like TikTok video scripts and things like that, like,
which we have those inside of our group. We're going to have more training on vertical video. I already did one
I
last
love
week.
it.
If you guys missed our training inside the artificial intelligence for real estate group, you should check it out, because I dropped some major hammer for an hour on video editing and best practices, and we're gonna be doing a lot more of that. So yeah, anyway.
I mean, just like, so it looks like the first thing I see is that the beds and baths were wrong, right? Over here, it said 3 bedrooms, 2.5, 3 bedrooms, 2. It got 1,800 square feet. So maybe there must be like a lot of those homes that are similar to that in that area.
Yeah.
But like that's just a good example, without going completely into this, how you can get a much more factual, still creative written listing description that you can copy, paste, tweak a little bit, and then publish, rather than trying to enter it all yourself and taking more time than it takes just to write a listing description.
Right. It's like, why does food taste so much better at a restaurant? It's just, A, it's cooked better, and B, there's just a little extra salt on it, right? So like you can have all the ingredients. You can go to Jasper, Chat GPT. If you want to get in the nitty gritty, learn all the prompts and everything, and try to have your own recipe, or you can just come to the restaurant and we're going to put a little extra salt on it, make sure it's damn good. And that's kind of what we're doing,
and there's no cleanup, right?
Yeah, and no cleanup. Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, I would say that there's a lot of opportunity in the real estate vertical to write better content that's either outbound prospecting, nurturing, or once you have the deal, how do you describe, market, and sell the property itself. That we already know that agents don't like to have to enter the MLS listing into 2 systems sometimes, right? And they want to write it once. And so why would you then do it also into GPT? You're not going to write it into a certain prompt. Now we have those prompt books. So the people that do that 1%, like, absolutely go have fun. And we're going to do more on those. So that way we can teach you how to fish. But we know that there's a certain level where you just go, you know what, enough is enough. Like, give me the easy button. And coming soon, we're going to be giving you so many cool easy buttons that's infused with Likely's intelligence. It's going to be awesome.
Well, can we talk about Follow Up Boss yet, or no?
We can. Yeah.
Okay.
We can talk about Follow Up.
So if you have Follow Up Boss, you might see a little icon inside your Follow Up Boss that you need to press. You need to hit it. You need to punch it and activate it, because the easy button is now inside Follow Up Boss for all the users to be able to extract and pull this data, which is flipping awesome, because that Follow Up Boss community is amazing. You guys are awesome. Absolutely. If you have Follow Up Boss, everything that we've done so far with that community has been awesome, and we're doing a lot more. But that's just the beginning, because the use case for this, again, is, yes, like Brad said, teaching you how to fish is important. Knowing how to fish is important. But having the power and the leverage and the speed, we want you to sell 2 more houses, right? We want you to sell 5 more houses. We want you to sell 10 more houses.
Hundreds more houses.
Yeah, you need to be more. It needs to be more leverage and more speed in what you're doing. So that's what AI is, right? It's leverage and speed.
But you have to make it so it's frictionless to use, because today it's always kind of like that. Okay, now how do I get it into my system? What do I do with it? And so with this first implementation into Follow Up Boss, we call it our magic tag. Just set the tag refresh, and it does everything you just saw inside a Follow Up Boss. It grabs and enriches your contact. Then it scores that contact for how likely they are to sell or be distressed, brings all the data back into that contact record and enriches it. And then we monitor that contact for any changes. And since we use custom fields and we push it as a general inquiry, it can trigger all the automations in Follow Up Boss. So we built now 3 automations that use our custom fields and the action plans behind those automations. So if your contact goes from a not likely seller to a high likely seller, that triggers one. And it's like, I think, a 90-day campaign, right?
Right.
If it goes from nothing to a low likely seller, it's a longer term nurture campaign, triggers and goes. Let's say the property that they own was on market and it gets expired. Well, this is someone in your database. Like, you don't have to like be the creeper that reaches out to them, but it triggers a campaign to have you text them right away. And that is all live right now. All you have to do is have a Likely account. You can go to my.likely.ai to sign up for a free account. If you want to get like a super special deal, you get like a 2 months for one, right? Is that the right way to say that, Nick?
BOGO.
BOGO
Again,
deal.
back to the grocery store analogy.
BOGO deal.
We like grocery stores, yeah.
So you get 2 months for one, and it's what likely.ai /
FUB deal.
deal. Yep. Follow up boss deal. And man, guys, we so excited. And very shortly, once it gets approved, an embedded app also will just drop down on the right-hand side, and all of that rich map data, all the skip trace, all the extra views. We're also doing validation checking. So does this contact live in this property? Yes or no. Does this contact own this property? Yes or no. So that way you can trigger it all.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this was jam packed. I hope everybody, if you guys are liking what we're doing here, give us some thumbs up and some love, and share this with your friends. Anybody who's looking to find out more information about artificial intelligence. If you're a real estate agent, broker, team leader, and you want to get a little bit even more than what we're doing right here, head inside of our Facebook group, AI Empowered Agents. We're going to be doing a lot more training. That group has already doubled in the past month since we started it, really refreshing it, if you will, our magic tag. So yeah, we're on this mission to help agents use artificial intelligence for ultimate leverage and grow their business. And in this market that we're going into, this is the perfect time. This is exactly what you need to hold your database nice and tight. Just hold them in your arms and coddle them like a little baby, right? So until next time,
never miss another deal.
Never miss another deal. That's right. Mr. Brad McDaniel, appreciate your time. Thank you for dropping some knowledge bombs. We appreciate you. And you got anything for the people?
Man, I appreciate the people. This group, the different social platforms, like, there's just not enough people that are talking intelligently about AI right now. And so, there's a lot of people that are coaches that have done something, or maybe spent a couple hours using Chat GPT and then, did a YouTube post or something.
Marketing AI.
Yeah, marketing AI. Or maybe they asked Chat GPT what to do for a webinar real quick, right? I'm pretty sure it's something like that.
Yeah.
Like, if you really want to learn how to leverage AI in a non-dorky way, but kind of translate it into, now I get what's behind, what do I execute, like actionable things? That's what Nick, team at Likely is delivering. Yeah. And man, you get it for free. Just join our Facebook group and get our playbooks and listen to us. Have some fun every now and then.
Nice. All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Same time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard. See ya.
Bye.